Well, hi there. Welcome back to Not Your College Life with Lisa Beals. I'm your host, Lisa Beals, and this is episode number 38, you guys. 38. Thank you so much for joining me. I am Lisa Beals, your host of Not Your College Life. I am the Midwestern mom / college administrator who has done the college thing myself and helped my kids through college and realized that administrators in universities, we don't make it easy on parents. And the red tape and frustration and call that person, no call that person, no call that person is crazy. And so I wanted to come here and bridge the gap for you. I wanted to help you save your sanity so that you can get from admission to graduation and be ready for the empty nester syndrome. Okay? So let's jump right in. This week's episode is the first in my series that I thought I'd put together about what to do when your student's coming home. So if you had a student that was fortunate enough, decided whatever, that they were going to be on campus this fall, and Thanksgiving is coming up or end of term is coming up, and I wanted to give you guys a few podcasts to help you prepare back at home for your student's return. This is the first of a 4-part series on what you need to do to plan for your student's return home from fall semester. Okay? So this week's episode, the first in that series, is about the 3 things you need to think about before your student comes home. I am making an assumption that your student is coming home at Thanksgiving and they're going to finish their semester at home with you. Okay? That's the assumption I'm going to make. So if your student is staying on campus and they're going to stay there until the end of the semester, you don't get to see them at Thanksgiving, you're going to have to pick and choose the things that are relevant for you. Some of them still may be, some of them not. So you'll pick and choose the things that you still want to apply to yourself, okay? So the 3 things. First one is, it's COVID and flu season. I wish I wasn't talking about it because, friends, I'm like you. I'm done talking and hearing about the COVID. And it seems like every day we're getting new and conflicting information. There is a goofy, I think she intends to be goofy. I think her name is Addie. I'm going to put her link in my show notes. She did a hilarious spoof on Fauci. And it's not, I don't think it's intended to be political in any way. It just speaks to the conflicting and contradictory and ever-changing advice that we are getting about COVID and what to do and what not to do. So, having said that, here's my official disclaimer. I am not a healthcare professional. I am not trained as a healthcare professional. This is not intended to be healthcare advice in any way. None. I'm just telling you my personal perspective and recommendations that I am providing you based on some sources that I have solicited. Okay? Disclaimer done. Back to your regularly scheduled programming. Okay, it's COVID and flu season. So even if you are not high risk or people in your home are not high risk, you still need to consider what's your plan when your student comes home. Now, you could be in the camp of, I really don't care, it's made up, it's not real, whatever. Or you could be in the other extreme camp where you are very fearful that you or someone that you love is going to get it and potentially die from it. Either side of the camp, still, you want to take this into consideration and come up with a plan with your student. So I'm going to go middle ground here, and I'm going to say that if your student is coming home for Thanksgiving, and this is possible, my recommendation would be see if your student can isolate on campus. Now, if they're taking a plane home or a bus home, then asking them to isolate on campus maybe for not, because they're going to expose themselves to hundreds of people on their journey home. So if your student is traveling by plane or bus or train, then perhaps isolating before they leave serves no purpose. But if they're going to be driving home, then maybe having them isolate on campus before it's time to leave, maybe that's easier than trying to figure it out when they're home. So if your student is planning to come home, let's say the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, then that means the first day for self-isolation for them is going to be when? It's going to be, we are going to target November 10th. So if they're going to try and isolate on campus before they return home to you, because they are driving home or you are going to pick them up, your personal vehicle, then November 10th is probably the target date where you're going to ask them to start isolating. Now, at my campus, I think the students are pretty well informed on what that means to isolate. So if your student is not at Purdue, then they're going to need to do a little research on what isolation means. Basically, they're going to stay in their dorm room or apartment, and they are going to completely eliminate their interactions as much as humanly possible. It should only be to get food. You can have food delivered. To shower, if their bathroom is not in their dorm room, then to go to the bathroom. And I'm going to even go so far as to say they probably can forego in-person classes if they have them, if they are conscientious enough to email their faculty to say, I'm in isolation. I need to isolate because I'm getting ready to go home. They're going to understand. Now, you may have that random faculty member who is going to be a curmudgeon and say, no, you're going to lose points, yada, yada, yada. Grounds for maybe an appeal. I don't know. I'm just saying. But I would say, if humanly possible, and they are returning home in a personal vehicle, I'm going to recommend isolation on campus. I think would be easier than trying to figure that out when they come home. Okay, so if they cannot isolate before they get home to you, you have to have a plan in place for when they're at home. You guys, so if they don't come home till Wednesday before Thanksgiving, that means they're going to be in isolation for Thanksgiving, if you're going to have Thanksgiving on the holiday. If you're like me, it's just another day that you get to be with your family. So I would be the mom to say, you know what? I want to have Mary part of our family Thanksgiving, so we're going to delay Thanksgiving until she has been able to isolate for long enough, and then we'll bring everybody together. If you don't want to come then, fine, but isn't Thanksgiving about being with family? So that's what I would do. I would not have Thanksgiving without my kiddo. I would say we're going to delay it. Now, I'm guessing, I have a hunch, because like I said, the facts are changing all the time. I would suggest that your student come home and isolate, and then within 5 days, I think at the end of 5 days, they say that's your peak. If you've been exposed, you should be at your peak to get a positive test if you're going to get it. So talk to your student's doctor, pediatrician, whatever. I think the latest research that I saw suggested that you're going to isolate, and then at 5 days of isolation, get tested. It's got a really high likelihood that if you're not positive by day 5, you've probably got a good chance that you're not positive. You've not got it. Now, I know the research changes and that it could go, some say it's up to 10 days exposure. So y'all need to talk to your own physicians about what that looks like. But consider using testing as an option to gauge how long your student would need to isolate. Or if you're lucky like me, I've had a kiddo that's already had it and recovered from it, and so now I don't need to worry about it. I don't know. What's the latest? Can they get it again? I probably should have looked that up before we started talking, but I don't know. Talk to your healthcare provider about, is there anything you can do related to testing that might allow you to shorten your student's isolation period before you bring them back around your family. Okay, talk about that. Now to the isolation period. You got to figure out, where are they going to be that's going to limit exposure, right? Do they share a room with the sibling? What does their room look like? Have you turned it into a gym or an office because you have to work from home? What is their personal space? What does that look like today? And what do you need to do to get it ready for them? Because if they're coming home at Thanksgiving, it's going to be crunch time for them. They're going to be stressed because it's ramping up. From Thanksgiving, we've got how long? From Thanksgiving till the end of the term for most of us. 2 weeks. 2 weeks. After Thanksgiving, there's 2 weeks. So that's finals week and final projects week. That's a lot for a student to deal with, in addition to moving home for the end of the semester. So you want to have their space ready for them to walk into and isolate and get busy with whatever work they have in front of them to finish the semester out. Will they have their own bathroom with cleaning supplies in there? Do you have enough? Theoretically, I would put a big trash can in their room, and then make sure you have enough disposable plates. So do you have paper plates, plastic utensils, throwaway cups, so that you don't have to worry about taking their dirty dishes and cleaning them? You prepare their food for them, you drop it off for them at their room, and then when they're done, they just throw their trash away into a trash can. That limits anybody's exposure. My recommendation. Do you have masks at home? I wouldn't necessarily be prepared with masks at home. Do you need them? Consider that. Do you need to get a supply of masks for home so you can limit exposure? They say mealtime is the highest occurrence of transmission. I think many of the athletes that have gotten it during mealtime. So just keep that in mind. That's why I would recommend, if you're worried about it, your student's going to isolate in their room. You're going to deliver their meals to them to their room. The rest of the family will eat separate. My recommendation only. Do what you want. Okay, study space. Their room should have a door. Their room should have a desk or a place that they can study that's not their bed. When my oldest was in college, she had a small dorm room. She had a separate desk, but for whatever reason, she did all her work in her bed. And about halfway through the semester, she was really struggling with insomnia. And we did all the remedies, right? The melatonin, the warm tea, and the hot shower, and all of this stuff. And finally, I reached out to my doctor and kind of talked through the situation. And I don't know if it's psychologically, because she was doing all of her stuff, all of her homework in bed, her body didn't realize that this is also a place of rest. So they recommended that when she sleeps, instead of having her pillow at the head of the bed where she studies, to flip it, and when she's going to sleep, have her put her pillow at the foot of the bed so it psychologically is a shift. So that's why I recommend study not in bed. Have them have a separate workspace to do their homework so that it doesn't affect their sleeping habits. This is just my personal experience that I faced with my daughter. Okay? Sleep is important. Do they have appropriate lighting? They need task lighting to be able to read and not get eye fatigue because it's not lit well enough. Do they have internet plug-in or strong Wi-Fi in that location? Because they will need strong Wi-Fi for their Zoom calls or whatever it is. If they're doing an online test, they will need strong and reliable internet. Okay? And then the last little piece about their room is even if this is just temporary, right? COVID is going to get in our rearview mirror at some point, and this is going to be your new normal with your kiddo 1 foot out, 1 foot in. And so the idea that you're going to preserve their room to always look like their room may not be necessary or appropriate, but this semester more than most, because of COVID and all the drama and the stress that these kids have been under, I'm going to suggest, if possible, before they return, you make their room resemble their room. I'm doing air quotes, you can't see me. That their room resembles their room as much as possible. To give them those creature comforts of home and familiarity when they're living in so much change. It could just be that nonverbal hug that they need to kind of relax a little bit and let them instead put their focus of anxiety and stress on their schoolwork where it should be. Just my opinion. Okay, the last thing I want you to think about before they come home is this break a time to get some stuff, some business taken care of? And what do I mean by business? I was cheesy and lame, and my daughters are probably going to make fun of me if they hear it. But whatever. Is this a time for some regular checkups? Do they need to get any follow-up immunizations? Do they need to get a doctor's visit so they can get some med refills? Are they due for med refills? Is this the time when you could probably get them into the doctor? Now, I'm gonna challenge you here that they're adults. Air quotes again, they're adults. And so if this is a time, depending on, are they a freshman or are they a senior, you need to decide, is this, I'm going to remind you that you probably need to make an appointment with your doctor when you're home so you can take care of X, Y, and Z. I'm going to be that reminder for you. Or if they're further into the adulthood picture, so closer to graduation, maybe it's letting them take it all, right? Have them take ownership of all of it. Just bear in mind for yourself, this is a reminder to you, mom, that their time home is not going to be all for you because they're going to have to take care of some other business. So if you haven't already started that adulting process where you're backing off a little bit of these responsibilities, now's a good time. Instead of making the appointment and texting them when their appointment is, because you know it has to be taken care of, how about I challenge you to do the baby step in having them develop their own self-efficacy and advocacy and independence. Those are a lot of big words. I think I use them all appropriately. But I'm going to challenge you, mom, to take this baby step. And if they have appointments they need to have when they're on break to get a med refill or to get a second immunization or a follow-up immunization, or if it's because it's time for their annual physical, I'm going to challenge you to simply text them the reminder that XYZ needs to be done when they're home and to let you know if they need a phone number. Okay? It's going to make you a little uncomfortable because you're going to have that mom guilt playing in your brain that this is something I need to take care of, and what if they're stressed already and they don't have time? Sis, it's late October. They still have 2 to 3 weeks easy to make that appointment while they're home. To make that appointment to visit the doctor for when they're home. Okay? And just tell them, you probably should not sit on this because I don't know how far out the doctor's taking appointments. And if they do it, kudos to them. They're further along than you thought. That's a good job. That's a pat on the back for you because you've developed that person into a responsible adult. If they don't take care of it and they get home and you asked, when's your appointment so that I can make sure you have the car available or X, Y, and Z, and they look at you and say, crap, you really meant you wanted me to do that, then now's the time that when they get home, that's when they pick up the phone and make the call. That still doesn't give you the pass to do it for them. It just means that they may not get that appointment when they need it. And then you'll help them troubleshoot and figure out next steps. So there you go. 3 things to consider before they come home. Reminders. It is COVID flu season. What's your plan to handle it? What's their room look like? And do you have business to take care of business? Do you have business that does your student have business to take care of when they're home? Because they probably need to make appointments for that. All right, you guys, I'm so happy and honored that you took time out of your week to spend with me here. Thank you so much. I'm going to offer another shameless ask for reviews on my podcast. I would really appreciate it. Can't get the word out if the podcast platforms don't know that you like the content I'm putting out. So I'm going to ask you to go. Give me a review. 5 stars? 5 stars would be wonderful and lovely. But if you give me less than 5 stars, I'm not going to give you a hard time because you're going to give me feedback, right? That's our deal. You can give me less than 5 stars, but you need to give me feedback so I know where I can do better. Okay, then the other thing I'm going to ask you to do is to share this episode with a friend. Share it with them. Let them know that I'm out here. I've got resources for them. I'm an ear. You guys, you can message me. You can email me. I'm on Facebook and Instagram at Not Your College Life with Lisa Beals. I'm here as a resource. That's why I'm here. I'm here as a resource. Still working on developing my workshop that is coming by the end of the year. I'm going to keep saying it as a way to hold myself accountable for you. And then next week, I'm going to be sharing some feedback. I think next week's episode is going to be information from the Dean of Students. I've reached out to a couple Indiana colleges within the state of Indiana, and asked for tips and insights from our friends in the Dean of Students office. And I'm going to be sharing that with you all next week. So don't forget to come back and give it a listen. Okay, you guys, till next week. Take care.